Welcome to the Love Doc Podcast. I'm your co-host, Raina Butcher, here with our host, Dr. Sarah Hensley.
Hey, girl.
Hey, what's up?
Oh, not much. Just so excited for our guest today.
Same. I'm so excited
In
too.
our last episode, we had Meg Miller from her platform Stand With Meg, who has probably the most horrific family court story I have ever heard. And now we have someone that I have connected with on TikTok who is from the lovely state of Kentucky where we are. She's in Louisville, and although we are sports rivals, we are not going to hold that against you.
Oh, yeah, good.
Okay. Yeah, go
We're
Cats.
Good. Go Cats.
But I found you on TikTok just like I did Meg, and you are doing some outstanding things for improving the family court system and advocating for accountability, specifically of judges in the system. And you got to sit here through the recording of Meg's podcast. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of what Meg is saying, or what she said on that episode, some people are going to go, yeah, how did that happen? Or how did that happen? And Christine's shaking her head the whole time like, yes, that can happen. Yes, this does happen.
Absolutely.
And so, as unbelievable as Meg's story sounds, it is unfortunately all true, and I've been through my own horrific family court battles, and as Raina has also here. But we're so excited to have you, and we just want you to tell us a little bit about what you are doing, and first give us a take on Meg's story, because you just sat through it.
Absolutely. And I started this platform for a plethora of reasons, but one of the big ones, I could not go anywhere in Louisville without someone telling me their horror stories. Mm-hmm. And so if there's anything I can say is that you are not crazy, the system is. Mm-hmm. You are not crazy, the system is. These stories seem so unbelievable because a system that was designed to protect families and children would never allow any of this to happen, right?
Right. You would think.
The reality is the courts are getting it wrong more often than they're getting it right. Mm-hmm. And I do think with Meg's scenario, it's one of those that I could see some warning signs for sure, especially with the income that her husband was making. And then we talked about child support. Now, with his case in particular, it seems he had his own business. So when I was reading her decree, it showed that he had a big difference with net income, which obviously you do if you run a business.
Right.
I've run one, you run one. Mm-hmm. But that is a really easy place to hide money. Mm-hmm. And so you have someone with an incentive to pay less child support to hide money. So that was a red flag. Mm-hmm. The tracker on the car, major red flag. To me, that shows domestic violence all day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you would know better than I.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And then the notion that you have, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, that Meg, everything that she's saying isn't true. Well, I'm saying the family court system isn't working, and she's got a decree from a state that says she gets 80% time with her children. Mm-hmm. So if the family court system were working, how did that outcome happen, right? If she's not telling the truth, which clearly I believe that her story is accurate. I think she's doing a lot of work. There were so many red flags, especially the notion of the ex-husband filing to modify or terminate maintenance at the same time.
That wasn't even that much maintenance to begin with.
Right. Yeah. But maintenance has nothing to do with children. You know what I mean? So certainly if there were an issue with children, you wouldn't be filing in a separate jurisdiction to terminate maintenance. Money would not be your top priority if your children were being abused, in my opinion.
Yeah. And so as unfathomable as it sounds, it is real, folks. And I think it's really important to highlight that you were a family law attorney, I should say. And so you've seen the corruption, you've seen I don't even know what word, people being so misguided, people not following rules and regulations, not allowing people their rights. Tell us a little bit about your experience practicing family law and why ultimately you decided to leave.
So I started as a public defender. I was a public defender in Eastern Kentucky. I did juvenile work, loved it, so passionate, but I wanted to get back to Louisville. That's where my mama was. I was ready. I was 29, I think, when I started my own firm. And I met a guy that was a criminal attorney, and they needed a family law practitioner to come in for their firm. And I thought, I'll try it for a little bit, and then I'll dabble back into the criminal. And my parents had been divorced, and I absolutely loved it. I started my firm in 2014. I was able to have flexibility. I could get resolutions for my clients. In private practice, you could choose your clients, which I couldn't do when I was a public defender. And so I was super happy for the first 3 or 4 years. And then as you grow, you get bigger. I had a firm. We bought a place. You're making more money. You get more of the high asset cases. You get more of the high conflict cases. And I started to see very quickly that the system was changing as well. We had a different set of judges that had come on the bench, but COVID was really a game changer. I think a lot of these judges realized that they could sit at home or do stuff on Zoom, remodel their house, get on social media, and the delays became absolutely out of control.
Yep. The delay was the demise of the father of my children.
And the conflict, it was encouraged. You started to see, so in Kentucky, we have guardian ad litems, which are attorneys that are appointed to represent the best interest of the child or children. We had a case, Morgan v. Getter, it came out in 2013-ish, that established these FOCs. And FOCs are court-appointed attorneys that still have the duty to the best interest of the child or children, but they're essentially investigative. So they do reports. But we've created this system where we have all of these attorneys that can make a significant amount of money, their whole livelihood, frankly, by being appointed, and they have immunity. And then
Which is ridiculous.
And go into more detail about that. Like when you say immunity, like immunity from what?
So judges have judicial immunity, and so if they're acting in their official capacity, then they're protected from lawsuits, essentially. And immunity is a problem throughout our country in all avenues. Like government officials should not have immunity, really. If you misbehave or if you act, out of negligence, there should be consequences like anyone else. But in Kentucky in particular, and we're a national model for family court. How terrifying is that?
Yeah. I commented on your video and I was like, oh my gosh, family court started in my state, FML. And then you did that reply and I was like, yeah, I am so disappointed in my state.
So, and there were family courts essentially like in other jurisdictions, but family court in Louisville started in 1991, I believe. It was a pilot program. And it was the notion, one family, one court, one judge. So if you had a domestic violence order that was filed, that's going to go to the exact same judge that you have the divorce, or that's going to go to the exact same judge that you have the dependency, neglect, and abuse action. And so this judge should know everything about this family. Well, didn't work out like that. And unfortunately in Kentucky, unfortunately in my opinion, we had a constitutional amendment in 2001, I believe, or 2002 that established family court in our Constitution. So it's not going away anytime soon.
Right.
Right. But then you have, back to like COVID, you have these judges that have just so much power, immunity. Family Court Rule 6 in Kentucky allows for them to appoint all these third-party experts. So you have the FOC, the GAL, custodial evaluators, reunification therapists, which don't even get me started on that. That is... In my opinion, you have reunification because you have this court manufactured abandonment, right? It's not actual, it is actual abandonment, but it's not what reunification therapy was meant for, in my opinion. I'm not a psychologist. But the court is ordering these people to be away from their children.
Right.
And then you have a therapist that's going to make $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 on reunification.
Yeah. Custodial evaluators charging $15,000, $20,000 for...
That's cheap.
Yeah. That was like the initial starting price that we were given.
Custodial evaluators are making up to $35,000, $40,000. They have this judicial immunity, and essentially it's quasi-judicial immunity, but essentially that means that they're protected. They're an arm of the court. They're appointed by the court, and so that court appointment keeps them free from liability, frankly. And one big thing I noticed, and I'm not in y'all's field, but if they will not do a custodial evaluation without that court order, because without that court order, there's no immunity. So if this is science and if it works, why aren't you providing that service?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I know in our case, it was like, well, can we go get this done privately? It's like, no, they have to order it. And we asked for it and it got denied.
Well, and I mean, that could be a blessing and a curse, because the
Maybe.
thing about these custodial evaluations, they'll take 18 months. And so just big picture, let's step back. Like if we're really creating a system in the best interest of children who age out of the age of majority at 18, 18 months, 2 years of their life, we're like, well, we've got to wait for this magical 30-page report with diagnostics that's going to tell us who is the better parent. I struggle to see the science behind that.
Yeah.
Have y'all ever read one?
I have read one.
I have not.
I
No.
have, I have read one, and they're kind of brutal. And one of the things that they do in custodial evaluations is they give the MMPI, right? And an MMPI is an assessment of essentially personality per se, right? And the state of your kind of emotional well-being. And it can detect for a lot of different things. But it is, and Meg kind of touched on this in her episode, you can actually be flagged for being quote unquote too positive or not having a big enough stress response, right, to what you're experiencing. But then if your stress response is too big, then they can judge that too. So the MMPI really walks this fine line of looking at all of these very intricate things. And a lot of people get test fatigue because it's so long, and they get a lot of anxiety coming in to take the test. And then there's the social pressure of, oh my gosh, this affects the custody of my children. And there's a lot of problems in and of itself with self-report assessments, lots of bias, lots of issues with memory recall. I mean, humans aren't robots, right? We're fluid. We can change in our mood from day to day. We can change in our perspectives after things happen to us. And then having so much weight put on that one assessment is, in my opinion, a little bit nuts.
And is that really indicative of how someone parents? I mean, we don't require in this country a parenting exam before you have a child.
Right.
Yeah, no.
Right.
I think it just, it measures, the person's psyche, really. It's not really measuring how good of a parent they are.
But does it even really measure that to to a specific degree? Because like you just said, there could be multiple variables that come into play that don't make it valid.
Yeah, I mean, the test is designed in such a way that it's supposed to catch like malingering. It's supposed to catch if someone's trying to be too positive, or if they're trying to, show a false disorder. It's meant to try to catch those things, but it's still not a perfect test. I mean, with any assessment, there's what we call error, right? Which an error can come from the test itself. It can come from, the person taking the test not reading the questions correctly, or, lying, or being biased, or poor memory recall. There's all sorts of error that happens in these assessments. And psychologists have to interpret the assessments. Of course, there's a scoring mechanism, but there's still some level of human interpretation in the way that, you take this score and you present it to the court, right? Like the language by which you present this information and the way that you could shape it or mold it to highlight certain things or to, not highlight certain things is still up to a human person that could have bias or motive for one side or the other side because of the financial aspect, like who's paying for the evaluation, right?
Absolutely. And I think that custodial evaluators, it draws a particular kind of psychologist. Like a girlfriend of mine is a psychologist and is like, I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Right.
Like, who am I? She says, as a psychologist, we really shouldn't be predicting the future like that. Like it's a slippery slope as far as us saying that this is science to say what's going to happen in 4 years and how someone's going to parent. And then we have stories of people that were found to be the better parent, and then the children have been unalived or been, came out when they get older and say, yes, I was in an abusive situation. And I do think One Mom's Battle, which has a huge platform, I do wish the One Mom's Battle and the Father's Rights Movement would come together, because I do not think this is a gender issue.
It's
Right,
not.
no.
It is so not a gender issue.
Family court's getting it wrong more often than they're getting it right. If they could unite, I think there could be some movement, because they both have large platforms. But that being said, One Mom's Battle does have a movement that children are coming. And that is so true. Family court has changed dramatically in the last 10 to 15 years. And we're going to see 20-year-olds that are going to go to their GALs and their FOC and going to say, you met me once. You never met me.
Yeah.
You met my stepmom. Never. You know what I mean? Like, how could you do this?
Yep.
And I don't understand how these attorneys don't realize that is the child is your client, essentially. I mean, certainly with the guardian ad litem, But how in the world can you ascertain the best interest of anything without having met the person?
Yeah. I mean, I've told my story, FOC in my case did 15 minutes of investigation, 15 minutes of total investigative work on a case that took over a year.
10-page report?
No, it was like 3 pages, 4 pages.
Oh, see, some of ours will be 10-page reports, but it will be, the same. I'd like to run them
Copy
into
and paste.
AI to see how often they're using the same verbiage.
Right.
Same with custodial evaluators, because I think it's lucrative. And then to go back to the financial component, if you incentivize chaos, it's going to lead to chaos. If you incentivize conflict, it's going to lead to conflict.
$1,500 for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm sure
absurd.
it's checking emails, but why do we have an attorney appointed for the child that's going to just be checking emails that 2 lawyers are already sending and not meeting with the school, not meeting with the doctor, not meeting with the child, not meeting with the preschool teacher? We just had a custodial evaluator that did a lesson that said we try to limit the people we talk to, and we try to not limit anyone that could potentially be biased. And it's like, you mean a witness?
Right?
I
Isn't
mean,
that
this
just
is
called
a
due
family.
diligence? Yeah. Yeah.
So they will interview people like the pediatrician, which I think is fine. But like you were talking about psychopaths and sociopaths, they can present amazing at
And
Amazing.
how often do you really see a pediatrician?
Right.
Like not that often. Like you
Yeah.
need to be interviewing people that this child has close relationships
Right.
with.
And that's why, an attorney isn't well-versed enough to understand the science of alienation, for example, to see a child and to look at the child and be like, wow, this is alienation or coercion.
And that's
right?
what's so interesting, I think, about this dynamic, having both of you here today and really the answer, right? So we've got an attorney, we have a psychologist, a specific psychologist that, studies human behavior. So what's the answer? Where does the reform happen?
I personally think there needs to be jury trials and they need to be speedy.
I think jury trials would go a long way. I think we have to start with the judges. I think we need judicial accountability. And what I mean by that is we have judges that want to be social media stars. We have judges that are working part-time. We have judges that are delegating their judicial authority to GALs, FOCs, custodial evaluators.
And doing no work.
And doing little to no work. I want people to know when you go in front of a judge, you should expect, especially where I practice in Louisville, Kentucky, you should expect that the judge has not read the motion that is before it.
Oh, I know these judges are not reading the motions because they scramble and then they continue it. And then it's another hearing where you pay your attorneys and you show up to be, well, let's check back in 3 months. Go take a online parenting course and come back in 3 months.
Absolutely.
Which is going to do nothing
And
for
so-
somebody who has NPD or is a psychopath or has BPD or has, some of these personality disorders.
And what's that even presenting? I mean, obviously I see the problem that you're saying, like the judge isn't really reading the motion. But I mean, how is this presenting the problems that the children are facing? Like, is it even?
No.
Yeah.
They are not putting the children first. How can you make a determination on a child when you don't know the allegations about the parents in the case? And y'all talked a lot about due process. So due process is notice and an opportunity to be heard. I taught a high school class and I loved it. I taught a law class and I was like, notice, opportunity to be heard. But that second prong, opportunity to be heard, is to present your case, to cross-examine, to have this done under oath. I mean, so much of this is happening where they're not even testifying under oath. I mean, it'll be an ex parte motion, an ex parte affidavit. And, I understand there are situations that call for ex parte communications. And there are horrific cases where children do need to be removed from
Absolutely.
parents. But going back to Meg, let's just think about this. So why is it that there are so many high asset divorces where children need to be removed, right?
Yep. When there tends to be millions of dollars at play, those are the ones where, things are going really wonky and we have to ask ourselves why, because they have the money to keep the cycle going. And the bad players, the judges, the FOCs, they know this, and it's their livelihood, and they want money, and the judges want people to donate to their campaigns, and
it is a
all
vicious
a
cycle.
Ponzi scheme. In my opinion, it's all a big pyramid scheme.
And I want to be careful about what I say for my judicial, not judicial ethics, but my legal ethics. But, I've been practicing. I've been a licensed attorney now for 15 years. I have not taken a case in probably 2 or 3. I have never had a bar complaint filed against me as a public defender or as in private practice. And so I do think the judges are really struggling with how to handle me. But I do know that I'm under a microscope. I mean, I'm getting some traction in Louisville. And so I'm waiting for the moment that they try to file and say I'm violating my ethics by telling the truth, which, I mean, bring it on. But I also think that the system is so similar to law enforcement. And as a former public defender, I love most law enforcement, to be honest. Like some of the people in Eastern Kentucky that I still talk to this day are some of the former cops because we really developed a good relationship in working on cases. That being said, there are bad cops. No doubt. And the problem where we saw police reform was the cops that saw bad behavior didn't report it. And we're in the same boat with judges. We're in the same boat with the family court system.
They're afraid of the consequences.
Yeah.
This is a cultural thing, maybe, that, without getting too much into it because we don't want to get canceled. But, I mean, there are some cultural things that are happening, I think, just in our world in general that are causing maybe law enforcement and judges to stay quiet and to stay silent.
Well, it's protect your own.
Right.
And, how I really got my first TikTok that I made was because of the TikTok judge we have in Louisville, Kentucky. And I had left the practice because of her and a plethora of other reasons. I mean, I just couldn't be a part of the system anymore. And life is too short. It wasn't fulfilling. I felt like I was doing more harm by participating, because these delays and then the emotional component as an attorney that you're not providing help to these people that are paying you so much money.
Right.
But we had a judge that selfie-recorded a domestic violence hearing for TikTok fame. And I reported that. I saw it Super Bowl Sunday. I sent it to the judges. I was like, y'all, surely this is enough.
Right.
Surely. And the local media was going to do a story. And then one of the judges got it axed. And I was like, if she can figure out TikTok, I can too.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was a Louisville problem. I mean, that's how naive I was even a year ago. I was like, it's just our Louisville judges. And then all of a sudden, I started getting messages from California,
They came out of the woodwork.
Texas.
Out of the woodwork.
Everywhere.
It's the system.
It's the system. And because I think the system has been set up to have this immunity to protect the bad players, they're essentially running around with free reign.
Yes.
With people's, the most precious things in people's lives, their children.
And
in their hands.
We need judicial accountability. They need to work full time. We need to know who's donating to their campaign.
Absolutely.
There's zero reason that attorneys should be donating it. And I'm an attorney that did. I mean, I'll be brutally honest. I've donated to campaigns. I've held fundraisers for people. And I think about it now, oh my goodness, if I were going through the system, how would you feel about that?
Because, my husband, he's been through 2 divorces and, of course, my divorce and custody battle. And, getting small towned is a real thing, too. That's a rough thing. And it's happened over and over again. And it's one of those things where it's like, oh, maybe, like, say we're in Lexington, but the case is in the next county over, right? And so, you come in with your Lexington attorney and they come in with their small town attorney who's then BFFs with the FOC and rubbing elbows and chucking and yucking it up in the court, and you're sitting there like, oh my God, I'm screwed.
Yep, we call it home cooked.
Yeah,
it's like you don't want to get home cooked.
Yeah, I got home cooked, not in the good way.
Yeah.
And I was raised. Well, I mean, I'm from Louisville. I grew up in Bullitt County, but I was raised legally in Eastern Kentucky, and so I remember one time I went to Hardin County or Bullitt County, and they were like, I was like, y'all don't know the first thing about home cooking somebody. I'll give you the number of an Eastern Kentucky prosecutor. He'll teach you. But it's so true.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's a small network of people, and a lot of attorneys, like when I was practicing, I didn't see a lot of this because I was able to choose my clients. And if I ever had, and I mean, I am not going to be the attorney that says I always only represented innocent people, okay? Because that's a radical, insane thing to think as an attorney. But there were certain things that I was just, no. You know what I mean? I'm not going to file a motion about a half hour because that's just silly. We're wasting money, you know? Or I would tell my clients, like, if you want to redo my kitchen, it needs it, but put this in a 529 account for your kid.
Right.
You need to stop the bleeding. If you're in family court, you've already lost, stop the bleeding.
Yeah.
And to back up as far as like Meg's story, if it's unbelievable and you go in thinking, okay, I'm going to go to the judge, I'm going to go to my lawyer, I'm going to tell the truth, and that's going to be that.
Right.
It's going to work out. It's going to be hard, and I'm really scared to tell the truth, and this is the hardest thing I've ever done because I never talked about the domestic violence that happened, or I never talked about what was going on behind closed doors. And so you go and you have that moment, and the attorney's like, the judge is going to give 50-50. And the judge is like, whoa, calm down, ma'am. Whoa, we're in a court of law. Ma'am. Like the way they speak to people. Or sir.
Yeah.
Whoa, sir, bailiff, sir. And you are just being gaslit times 10 after trying to share your story.
One of the things that they say is like, don't show any emotion. Don't you dare show any emotion. Don't you dare, and you're just like, this is the most emotional thing I've ever been through in my life.
You're breaking on the inside.
You're expecting me to sit here like a statue against this man who, in my case, has assaulted me, has burned things in my driveway, has drove my kids drunk, kidnapped one of my children for days on end where I didn't know where my 1.5-year-old child was.
Oh my goodness.
And I could get no help.
Yeah, and you're not allowed to show any emotion.
And I'm not.
You
don't show any emotion because you'll come off as the unstable one.
Right.
That's what they'll think about you.
And there is no training for judges, as far as I know, for understanding this emotional component. And also in Kentucky, there's no requirement that you have to have ever practiced family law to be a family law attorney. There's no requirement. How many prosecutors do we have that are on the bench? Prosecutors have never had a client.
Right.
I mean, they have no idea how to do client management. They have no understanding of, no one ever called me because they were having a good day.
Right.
No one's like, Christine, life is going good. Can I give you $300 an hour to sit here and have this conversation?
Right.
They are going through the worst time in their life. They're paying an obscene amount of money for it. And then they're being told that they're a little child and to sit and stay and behave. And then they're not getting the outcome they want, and it's being delayed. I think delayed. Yes, the inconsistencies and the delays are a problem. And so I have started, I've got a partner, he's a former family law attorney that was like, I'm out. And there's a lot of us. But we are starting Judgy, which is judge. Sorry.
Yes, and you even have it on your shirt.
Yeah,
Yes.
let me see your
little
show
merch.
your sweatshirt.
But Judgy, so judge-y.com. And what we want to do, we're going to take the first 8 weeks or so. We want people to email and call and tell us your story so we know where to look. Because what's interesting about this, and from the legal perspective, is I'm so interested in patterns. And so you see the same thing over and over. It's the same play, different actors. And these judges will rule a certain kind of way. And so it's so important that when people go in the process, if you draw Judge Brown, which that's the TikTok judge, you need to know what you're dealing with. So we want to have the availability for you to be able to look at orders from her every time she's been turned over by the Court of Appeals or the Supreme Court. Watch video of her. We want court watchers. People love to watch the murder trials or the Karen Reeds. Y'all need to be watching family court.
Oh my gosh, it's insane. And these judges talk to you like dogs.
It would shock people. I mean, I've seen a family court judge basically throw something. We have a judge right now in Louisville that he is so sarcastic, so demeaning. And the profession draws a lot of people that probably haven't had power before.
Power does a lot of things to people, a lot of bad things to people.
And he thinks, I don't know that he's thought it through, but he thinks, the best I can surmise is that if he just yells at somebody, then they'll just, oh, okay, I'll be a good parent. Or, oh, okay, I'll stop doing that. And if that were possible, why don't you just, yell for world peace and have world peace happen? It's just, it's silly. Yeah. And they'll talk to you like you are the dumbest person they've ever met. The way that judges speak to attorneys in family court. is shocking to me.
Yes, it is. It is shocking.
I want to know more about Judgy though. So like, walk our listeners through it so they can go to the website. Is it active?
It will be active on Monday, so probably by the time this airs.
Okay, awesome.
Yes,
awesome.
by the time this drops, it will be active.
So they can go to the website and then just kind of walk them through the process in terms of what they'll find there.
So right now, and I've been in this space for about a year. And so when I first started the family court reform, again, I thought it was just Louisville. And then I've kind of blown up, in all different places. And there's a lot of movement, even globally. But we are looking to collect stories to see where we should go. We're starting in Louisville, but we want to hear all of your stories because Judgy is essentially going to, watch the judges and judge them like they're judging people.
Yeah.
And we really want to call out the good judges. So if you were there doing your job, I actually had the opportunity to read, not in its entirety, but Meg's initial decree, which was was it Missouri or Kansas initially?
Both, right? She had two jurisdictions.
Missouri was the first one.
Okay.
Very well written decree. And, I know nothing about this judge, but reading it, you're like, okay, we've touched every base. And so there are judges out there, and I know them that have gone home crying about cases, that have gone home sick about what they see every day. And so, judicial accountability, it can come off as so negative, but really we want to showcase the good judges.
Absolutely.
We want to showcase the ones that are doing their job, and not trying to be social media stars.
Right. So let me ask you this, because, I'm kind of, not smart when it comes to all this stuff, but can you pick which judge you get in family court? I mean, if there are multiple judges in a county?
So in Louisville, how we do it, there are 10, and they used to be assigned by last name, which was a mess because then you would know it was by mother's last name, or in same-sex marriage, it would be petitioner's last name. And you would know. And so then if you drew like a Division 7, the retainer would be double. Or if you drew, Division 4, you might be like, okay, it's going to be okay today.
Right.
But now they do random assignment, which it complicates things too. And so you have the delays, but another problem is the inconsistencies. 10 judges in Louisville will rule very differently on the same fact pattern, very differently. You might have a situation with abuse allegations that are very similar across the board, and one judge will do equal parenting, one judge will do supervised visit, one judge will order a custodial evaluation. And so when you start talking about this equal protection under the law, it's problematic to have the same fact pattern and get dramatically different results.
Right.
Which just goes to show you that these standards or guidelines that are for the best interest of the child, the best interest standards, they obviously can be wildly interpreted in wildly different ways.
Yes, and to go back to your point of a jury trial, and that is what protects the criminal system.
Yes.
And, we need checks and balances.
Yes.
Absolute power corrupts absolutely. These judges operate with little to no accountability. In my opinion, the Court of Appeals and Supreme Court don't really have an understanding of family court because most of them never practiced it. I do think we're seeing a lot more Court of Appeals opinions come down on family court, though, where they are like, y'all, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I mean, the baby case that I posted on where the judge removed an infant from dad in open court when mom wanted to give the baby up for adoption, and the dad filed, which is unheard of, and notified all the adoption agencies, listen, if she wants to give the baby up for adoption, I want the baby. So he got the baby 17 minutes after the baby was born, and they did an agreed order before, and they did an agreed order after that dad would have sole custody. He wasn't seeking any sort of child support. And then there was an issue with his mom. And so his mom got back with the mother, and they went to court. And it's evident, in my opinion, the judge hasn't read the file. And they have a hearing that was canceled. Talk about due process. And she orders him to return to the next week and hands the baby over in open court.
That's nuts.
See, a great example of this not being gender specific. It can happen to men too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And the Court of Appeals issued a writ, and essentially that is extraordinary relief, saying they issued an emergency order as well, returning the child, which quite frankly, I don't think I've ever seen, because they were just like, this was a gross miscarriage of justice. And so I'm optimistic. I still, to some degree, want to believe in the system. You know, I want to believe that the pendulum has just swung too far one way and it will correct. I'm not optimistic. I know y'all want hope on this, but I'm not optimistic until we have a dramatic shift in how we view stories that happen out of family court and how we elect judges and how we hold judges accountable.
Yeah.
One of the things that just bothers me so much about family court is that there is just no accountability around perjury. So, you know, in my experiences in family court, someone can literally just say whatever they want. And if you're one of those people that's like, no, I'm an honest person, I'm only going to tell the truth. And, you know, I'm just my morality is like, I couldn't under oath say something that wasn't true.
No.
But yet there are so many people that don't have that morality. And so they're just going to say whatever they want. And there's no penalty for perjury. So if you're caught lying, it's like, oh, well, that's at least in my
Shame
experiences.
on you. That's, yeah.
You know, well.
It's so problematic. Also, we have lawyers in there. So, right, I'm a good writer. So if you tell me a story, I can write it down in a way that's going to be the most persuasive. And that's who's writing the affidavits a lot of times. Also, we have this notion for judges, and I've talked to so many like therapists about this, that think there's no way someone would say something this crazy if there wasn't a nugget of truth in it. And while that can be true on one side, on the flip side of the coin, I guess, people make stuff up.
Obviously, they don't understand mental illness and personality disorders.
Right. People make stuff up.
No, but that person is the nicest person I've ever seen. And, you know, as an attorney, you can see your client sometimes, you know, I mean, especially... You said on the last podcast you've never seen a psychopath. I think I have twice when I was practicing criminal, but I still, like right now, the hair on my arms are standing up. Like I could feel it with every
I think I've seen a
bone.
psychopath. I mean, I was a victim's advocate for 3 years. And so I in Harlan, you know, I definitely think I saw one psychopath, like a true psychopath. It was a murder case, and like, it would make the hair on your arm stand up for sure.
And I just don't think, though, people realize that there are so many, you don't want to say bad people, but honestly, to some degree, I do feel like I'm one of those people that's like, I'm not going to lie under oath, or I'm not going to go to that level because it's wrong. Like there's right and wrong, and some people don't have a wrong parameter.
They don't have that moral compass,
Well,
and they'll do whatever they have to do to see the person that they want to suffer.
And I think too, when specific people are being influenced by not wanting to lose their money, you know, they'll say and do whatever, right? Like, you know,
Absolutely.
I think that maybe in Meg's case, that was a big variable. You know, her ex-husband didn't want to lose money, and so he was willing to do whatever it took to not have to pay.
And you see that a lot. I think the Denver Gazette is doing a lot of great reporting. Another side of this that Judgy kind of wants to take on is just some investigative journalism, because I don't think we have that anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, in this country as a whole, to some degree, but family court is so hard to report on because it's nuanced. It's not clickbait. It's not, oh my goodness, the judge issued a zero bond on a SA case. It is complicated. You have to read through everything. You have to have the understanding that people lie, or, you know, it requires work. But the Denver Gazette is doing great work out of that. And there was that case where family court took mom's kids away because of SA allegations against stepdad. Criminal court gets involved, and they're like, this didn't happen. This was fabricated. But the GL, it came out that the GL, very wealthy family. We're talking millions of dollars. GL was flown out to Hawaii to visit the kids while the kids were with dad, had billed over $100,000, and was like, there were text messages of like the GL like, where's the snorkeling gear? But mom sued in civil court for defamation. $21 million verdict. Which goes back to you.
For her.
Yes. But that goes back to jury trials. The jury saw it.
Yeah, the jury, that's what I'm saying. Due process, it should involve a jury of our peers, right? I mean, it should.
I mean, I think due process, legally speaking, doesn't necessarily encompass a jury trial, because you can get evicted without a jury trial. So, and I don't necessarily know that if you file a motion to, you know, modify the parenting schedule, that should be a jury trial situation. But when you have these determinations of, when you have a 3-year divorce with custody. Yeah, Texas does it.
Yeah.
And it works better in Texas than it does here. Now, they have some weird laws on the books still there in Texas.
Well, I mean, it's just we have to have something that makes people accountable for perjuring themselves as well. You know what I'm saying? There's no accountability in family court. I feel like if you're in criminal court and you go perjure yourself and then it comes back that you were lying, you know, there could be some repercussions for that, right? Where you lied under oath and swayed a jury a certain way because you lied.
Yeah,
it's not that way in family court.
But there are consequences in criminal court. And even if it's not getting prosecuted, it's that the jury won't believe you or that the judge won't believe you if you're in that situation.
Right.
But we don't have that on the flip side.
Right.
The defense is, well, you know, it's their kids, or we want to move on, we want to move on, we want to move on. And you can't just brush everything under. I don't know that I'm a component in more criminalization because quite frankly, I think the system is such a mess that if we have more hearings on this, but you're right, there should be consequences.
Yeah, what are the consequences? There are none.
Yeah.
Yes, and I don't want to go on record saying it's encouraged to lie in court, but if someone were to ask me what will happen if I lie in court, the answer is probably nothing. I mean, you should never do it.
No.
I mean,
Right.
as an officer of the court, obviously tell the truth.
Right.
But I've seen people lie. And then you have people that finally do get their kids, or the process ends after 3 years and they go into, I never want to talk about it again.
Yeah.
I can't open that wound. And I am curious for like the kids' perspective, like how much, like y'all talked a little bit about the damage of children, but that abandonment component for these kids that are, it's just, they're an object in high conflict cases and we're just pulling kids out of families left and right.
And what I don't understand is how do they get it wrong in both instances where it's like, okay, maybe there is a very dangerous parent, like in my custody situation, a father driving their kids drunk, a father that, you know, is physically abusing mom, emotionally abusing mom, verbally abusing mom in front of the children during exchanges, keyed my car, lit things on fire, you know, in my driveway. My oldest daughter wouldn't go with him for an exchange because he was drunk and she could tell he was drunk, but he picked up my 1.5-year-old out of my arms, basically tossed her in the back of his truck and pushed me away as I'm trying to claw my way in the truck to stop it, and then took off. No help from police. They wouldn't even file a report because it was, quote, his parenting time. But I'm like, he was drunk. And they're like, well, we can't prove that. So no help, no help from CPS. Everything's always unsubstantiated, you know. And then yet I've also been involved in a case where the parent, you know, shouldn't have had their child taken and did have their child taken.
Yeah.
Right. So
that
it's
was
like
my case. Yeah.
It's so many times I've seen it just, it's always wrong. Like, how do they always get it wrong?
Yeah.
Well, I think
Christine, tell us.
The common denominator, though, in those cases are probably a person with a personality disorder.
Yeah.
They're involved in all of them. And so family court is a playground for narcissists.
Yeah.
Family court is a playground for narcissists. It's like, oh, it doesn't work if I go to CPS, so I'll go to the guardian ad litem.
Yeah.
That didn't work. I want a friend of the court. That didn't work. I want a custodial evaluation.
Yep.
That didn't work. I want a parenting coordinator. That didn't work. I've got a therapist.
Yeah.
And I can pay this therapist because this therapist is so good and all of the things and doesn't take our insurance, so somehow the other party doesn't get notified of it. And you've got 15 sessions and everybody, you're just feeding that little narrative. And then you may have been unable to convince 7 people, but then now you've got this therapist that's like, oh my goodness.
And then they're going to write this report that just blows everything up.
Because all it takes is one.
Right.
Yep.
It takes one of these court-appointed actors to say, oh my goodness, and then all of a sudden the custody flip. And then to go back to law enforcement a little bit, law enforcement are trained, and it's civil, right?
Right. Civil. We can't get involved.
Which they can't because it's civil. So you don't want, from the liability standpoint of law enforcement, they're just like, whoa, you're in family court. Let family court deal with it. But we have too many chefs in the kitchen in family court, and no one's in charge.
Yeah, nobody's in charge.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember the time where my ex-husband was following me around my daughter's softball game and just intimidating me and threatening me and just, I mean, he was drunk. I could smell it on him that he was drunk. And then he went and he keyed my car out in the parking lot. And then, you know, of course I called the police, and then I said, please breathalyze him. I said, if you breathalyze him right now, you will see that he is highly under the influence, and it's his time sharing. I'm gonna have to release my kids to him in a vehicle. Breathalyze him, please. And they were like, no. They were like, we don't have probable cause. Like, we can't just go breathalyze him.
And there's a difference. High functioning alcoholics, and I don't know, but
he was very high functioning, very high functioning.
you only know if you know the person.
Right.
You know what I mean? There are those tales. And it's like, I don't know what the answer is other than to bring awareness first. Because, and one thing I do want to touch on, and I hear this so much, is, oh my gosh, if that happened to me, I'd be in jail. Or if that happened to me, I would be this. And I want people to think about it like, well, if he ever hit me, I'd leave. Because we all think that.
Right.
And then it happens. And so these people that have been traumatized by family court, like I see a lot of, they'll be like, oh my gosh, well, how did that person go on vacation? Well, what are they supposed to do?
Right.
Sit at home for 18 months and cry?
Right.
So we have to normalize the fact that I think as human beings, we do not want to admit bad things can happen. So therefore we kind of say like we don't understand them or they're unbelievable. But so many people that go through family court that are fighting, they get like, oh, there has to be more to it because they're not dead. And it's like, it's the same as people not leaving with domestic violence.
Right.
Human beings will survive.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. I know, we said that about Meg's case because we can't imagine what it would really be like to actually be in that situation. I mean, I remember a situation where my ex had passed out and it was court ordered that my 8-year-old daughter at the time have a phone so that, if he passed out or something happened, that she could call me. Well, she called me. She texted me, Mom, I can't wake up Dad. I can't wake up Dad. And my 2-year-old other little child, almost 2, not even quite 2, is running around there. There's only fruit snacks in the pantry. There's no other food there. They can't wake him up. We had a no contact order at this time, so I can't just go over there and get my kids. So I have to call police. Well, he woke up right before the police got there, locked all the doors, closed all the curtains, turned off all the lights, hid them in a closet, and avoided police for 4 hours. And CPS marked it all unsubstantiated, even though they had all the texts from my daughter, interviewed my daughter told them what had happened. The police had been there, and I couldn't get to my child. And of course,
The trauma.
Yeah, the trauma. I mean, my daughter has been in years of therapy, and luckily she is a healthy and happy and thriving young girl. I mean, the therapy has been incredibly beneficial to her, and she's never really had any major problems, thank goodness. But it was something that she lives with, right? Like I remember that night that I couldn't wake my dad up.
Yeah.
And she never should have had to gone through that, obviously. And it's not as though there wasn't a government entity
But do you
that
think
was
the
notified.
judge cared? Because CPS said it was unsubstantiated.
And
so
so-
I looked like the bully.
Well, I wonder if you were to sit down with that judge now, what they would say after he
I
passed
would
away.
Right.
love to sit down with her.
Let's
I
get
would
her on
love
here.
to sit down with her and look
Yeah.
her face to face and say, do you know that because you didn't follow your own local rules, and you gave an exception and after exception after exception, that this is what happened?
These
And
are the
I'm not blaming her for his death. He did the drugs and did the alcohol. But could I have maybe gotten testing that maybe could have sent him into rehab again or could have done something?
Family court's failing, and that's what it's failing over and over. If I had one success story, and I do have success stories from criminal court. You have people that got caught up in the system, and like I had someone on my TikTok yesterday. It was like, "Hey, it's Amanda," and she was like, "I've been sober 8 years. I've paid my house off." And I mean, when I was practicing, Amanda was in and out of jail for a year, and she got sober. She was so sweet, but that was at the height of the drug epidemic in Eastern Kentucky. But there are success stories after success stories in criminal court.
Sure.
And I don't know that I can go back in my decade in family law and really be like, oh my God, the system made anything better, which should terrify people. Right. And I talk to there's a lot of us lawyers out there that know it's not working. It's a very small group of people that are these FOCs and GALs, because a lot of people wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's not... I didn't become a lawyer to write a report and not meet anybody.
Right.
You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
that's just a kind of, to each their own, but that's a bizarro pathway for a lawyer to go.
Right.
Or custodial evaluator. Like, they're not helping anybody. They're just like writing it
psychologists
down.
don't make that much money without doing that. So I'm assuming clinical psychologists that are even if they don't take insurance, they're not making anywhere near that amount of money. So it probably seems like a very lucrative avenue, if they have the moral compass to actually do it right. But I'm not saying that they all do. I mean, I'm not going to lie. There are so many weirdos in my profession, so many weird people. So many weird people. And I am a social psychologist. I'm not a clinical psychologist, but of course I ran a clinical psychology program. I trained alongside clinical psychologists. You want to talk about weird people. There's some really freaking weird people.
Yeah.
And they're making decisions about people. And they're in and of themselves. There's something up.
Right.
And you have this family court has created an avenue for psychologists and lawyers to kind of flip roles. Like lawyers think they're psychologists and psychologists think they're lawyers.
Right.
And you're
they're, just like what I was telling you about the FOC and this clear case of alienation. And they were like, I'm puzzled why a child would say this in front of mom and then get in a forensic interview and say, well, I just had to say it to make mom happy. But I don't know how that happened. That's just weird. I guess there was just a little miscommunication. I mean, literally, that's what the determination was. And it's like, no, if a child is saying some very exaggerated claim and then goes in and says, well, I had to say it to make my mom happy, that should raise a red flag around alienation.
And I don't know the specifics of your case, but I almost don't want to give deference because we have Google. I mean, you can Google and what that is. And also, if that's what you find, you shouldn't be an FOC ever again. Like, it doesn't mean you're a bad person per se. Like,
it's just ignorance.
Well, yeah, it's like, I'm a good person, but do you want me changing your brake lines? Like, I'll give it my best shot. I'll watch a YouTube video.
And so why is a judge allowed to appoint an attorney that is making a decision on whether alienation is happening or not?
And that was a Supreme Court case, and then now it's in our family court rules. And I do think the judges realized, like during COVID, that they could do all of these appointments. Like, I went to court for the first time in like maybe a year and a half in person just to watch, and I'm going to start doing that more frequently. But it was shocking to me how bad it has gotten even in the last 2 years. But there are so many cases that there will be an GAL and an FOC and 2 lawyers. So you're like, let's just step back for a second and just like ask a kindergartner this. Like, should there be 4 lawyers involved in a divorce where you work at UPS and you're a teacher? You know?
No.
Right. No.
And then you're going to go bankrupt.
Yeah.
We are bankrupting families. We are taking away children's education. We are traumatizing children. It's like I struggle with the notion because I don't believe that everyone's bad, but I do think the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And there are a lot of well-intentioned people that believe what they are doing is for a better cause. And it's really hard when you're in a system because the incremental changes happen over time. And, it's the way we've always done everything.
Right.
Or it's the way we do things. Or, we have the same GAL that gets appealed every single time.
So
nice person.
Right. So I want to know, besides bringing awareness to it, which I think is huge, in terms of the law itself, where does the reform begin? Where do you start?
And it's hard. I studied under Justice Scalia in law school, and separation of powers course in Ireland. If you're familiar with Scalia, he was known for his dissent. So I'm like 22, sitting in Ireland, studying abroad, like reading 47-page dissents, you know. But he was an extraordinary human being. But we do have separation of powers. So the judiciary is supposed to protect itself, and it's supposed to, people that are judges are supposed to have reverence for the bench. And some of the old judges, they were so amazing. Like, if you'd see them in public, hey, judge, these judges now, I call them by their first name. It's like, no. But I think we need to have, some of the laws need to change as far as the FOCs. I'm very concerned. Like in California, they allow taxpayer FOCs and GALs, essentially, minors counsel, which, right? They also do not have cameras in courtrooms. So I think a task force at the legislative measure would go a long way. I want judges to have timesheets. You've lost your privilege. You got to be at the courthouse by 9 and you can't leave till 5.
Right.
Bummer. You're on the taxpayer dollar, you know?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
You signed up for this.
And it is so apparent in both of my cases that these judges didn't know what was going on. I know you haven't read this. You're flipping through it, scrambling, and then continuing it. And delaying it.
they're so unprepared, it's shocking. Like, and I really think with Judgy, just getting this information out there, I'm working with Susan Bassey. If you don't follow her too, out of California, she does, she's not a big TikToker, but she does true investigative journalism. But when she posted the baby case that I did, she had people call her to be like, thank God I didn't go to family court. You were right. And I had a good friend of mine that was contemplating divorce about a year ago. And, you know, beautiful children, and there was a pit in my stomach. And I was just like, they're going to take away your kid's education. Like, I know what's going to happen. They're both good parents. You know, they have issues, but love their kids. Equal parenting, split the assets according to income. You're paying a little bit of maintenance and move on. But attorneys will bill $50,000, $60,000 for that, which is the girls
Both.
Right. That's right.
I spent my entire retirement on my custody battle. My entire everything that I had banked away from in retirement since the moment I started working was gone. I drained my entire retirement. And this recent court battle, I'm not going to say whether it was family court or not, cost $50,000 from that stemmed from a heinous false allegation against my child that never happened, that there was not one shred of evidence or proof that it happened. And thank God everybody that was in the investigation with my daughter saw immediately, like, this is so bogus, right? Like, this didn't happen. The supposed victim said it didn't happen. We had camera evidence that it didn't happen. The story changed so many times that it was clear that there was a lack of consistency in the allegation. I mean, there was everything on our side, so at least my daughter was very protected because the police didn't even open a case. They're like, we can't open a case because there's no evidence, there's no crime. The victim is even saying there's no crime.
And so we see that a lot with SA.
But in terms of the follow-up of, okay, well, what do we do about this false allegation? Like, and like the maliciousness behind it. There's nothing you can do.
And that's the Denver
we tried,
case.
but there's like not much you can do about that.
Yeah, but then you're talking about being in another lawsuit. But that Denver case, when the jury verdict came back $21 million for defamation and other civil actions.
I hope Meg gets that.
That mom still did not have her children.
Right. Yeah.
Like, literally, there was still a custodial evaluator that said she shouldn't be. And so
It's crazy.
Yeah, so one court of law found the
Yeah.
truth, and in family courts didn't.
And no amount of money is worth not having your children. So
I would sell everything I owned.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they know
I would do what and Meg's still sitting here because we just recorded her right beforehand, and so she's getting to watch this episode. But I would probably do exactly what she's doing. I would quit my job. I would learn the law.
I would sell
and
everything I possibly could.
I would sue excuse my language, the fuck out of everybody that I could possibly sue in order to get my kids back. And I would be on a rampage, and I would not stop until my kids were back in my arms again.
Oh, I mean, the pro se movement, I have pro se litigants that follow me that becomes their sole life, as it would. Like, and they will email me legal arguments, and like, I have a group of lawyers that like, they're Team Christine, but they still practice, you know? So I'll be like, this pro se litigant had this argument. And I'm like, I love it. You know what I mean? Like, because you take someone's kids and that will be their sole factor. And it's like, with the criminal system, at least there's finality. Even if you have to go to prison for 8 years, it's like, I'm going to do my time. I'm going to get better. I'll be able to see my kids, but there is no reprieve from family court. And I got divorced. I mean, we didn't have children, thank goodness. And we resolved everything. But I remember, I was a divorce attorney at the time, and I remember being like, that's a person that knows everything about you.
Right.
You know?
Everything about you. And they can use that to, and they can lie.
Yeah, and torture. Yes. And so you're like, I would get an email from my lawyer, and it would be that heightened, oh my gosh, and I knew the answer, but it's that whatever psychologically, that rush.
That fight or flight response.
Yes, where you're just like, oh, I want to hurt somebody, or how is this happening? And so I do think the system, I think first off, if we have judges that work full time, it will help. If they read motions, if they know they can't do worse than what they're doing. I do think we need some component of AI. Now, I'm super hesitant about some of that, but I do think if we could compare these orders, we'll be able to see clearly how across the board it is. Also, if we have time, let's touch on those gag orders, because that's got to stop.
You know, the very first thing I signed in my custody order was like, you can't say anything about this on social media, in print, anywhere, or I will drop you as a client.
Well, there are two issues there, right? One, the first is an attorney saying that is very bizarre to me.
Really?
So the attorney-client privilege is held by the client, okay? I don't own that privilege. The only person that can tell me that they can waive that, and it survives death. The only person that can waive that is the client. So if a client wants to put every email that I ever sent them on Reddit and talk bad about me, well, one, I don't care. But two, there's nothing I would ever do about that. Like, there's nothing that would prevent them from being able to do it. It's their privilege. I'm the professional. There is a dramatic power imbalance. Attorneys have so much power, and people that have never practiced outside of family law don't realize the power that we have when it comes to family law clients. Like if I were to tell a client, you'll get your kid back if you go run down the street naked, they do it.
Yeah.
I mean, they listen to everything I say.
Right.
And coming from the criminal world, it was so shocking to me because in the family world, they're asking you all of these questions. And it's like, I'm a lawyer. I have no idea where you should go to daycare. You know what I mean? I'm 29 years old. I don't even have a child. Like, and so, but that in my is red flag. Like, I don't like that. Especially because lawyers are constantly asking for Google reviews in this world. A lot of lawyers are trying to be social media influencers, but that hurts my belly. But two, the bigger issue is the judges doing these gag orders. Gag orders, the purpose of a gag order is to protect the outcome of the case. And what I mean by that is if you're going to go to jury trial, you want an untainted jury pool. So that's why we have gag orders. Okay, whoa, O.J. Simpson, y'all can't talk about this because it could taint a potential juror. Or Karen Reed, y'all can't talk about it. They're scarcely used. I still do feel that they're problematic from a First Amendment, but I understand the point because impartial, fair juries, that's the foundation of the United States of America. But where the judge is the trier of fact, the finder of fact, why are they trying to gag you outside of that courtroom? Because one, they should never hear a single thing that's happening outside of that courtroom because it's ex parte. And two, they're the ones making the decision. They, in my opinion, are insane. I have seen I saw a gag order once. Judge Christine Ward out of Louisville, Kentucky, ordered a mom to not post anything pertaining to her minor child. Now, as a lawyer, I'm like, well, what if she put a picture up there while she was pregnant? That's pertaining to your minor child.
Right.
That is so broad, so encompassing. What if and I know nothing about this case other than like the order, but I don't know the parties. I just stumbled across it during my research. But what if the mom was friends with the child on Facebook or saw the mom's Facebook and saw mom delete all the pictures of her? What's that going to do to the child?
Right.
So in what world is that in the best interest? And also, Judge, what you trying to hide? You know?
I think that's some part of what's going on here. No, we don't want you talking about this case on social media or, like in Meg's case, having a private Facebook support group. That's a private group
them.
where she's talking about what's been happening to her.
Right.
Yeah, because they don't want to be exposed.
Yeah, they're being exposed.
And it's so bizarre that they don't want criticism. I mean, I don't love criticism, don't get me
nobody
wrong,
does.
but at the same time, you didn't just sign up to be a judge. You
Right.
fought for it.
Right.
You ran. A lot of times these judges are spending $100,000 for a campaign where they're going to make $160,000, which is bizarre to me, and I think that's another thing judges going to look at as far as why are there people who have millions of dollars and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to get a job that pays that. That is a desire for power.
It is a desire for power. There's no other explanation behind it unless, you're just someone that wants to, change the world so much. But as a family court judge, I don't know.
And I do think there are good family court judges in the world, but I struggle with it. I've made a hard stance about our family court bench that I will not say I think they all need to be held to account because they don't hold each other accountable. And that is almost more dangerous. It's like the person that sees a bad act that doesn't report it to protect the robe. Who's worse?
Right.
And I struggle with that. And I really do struggle to think of a family court judge that I'm willing to say something positive about. The Bar Association can do with that what they will, but I struggle because just the demeanor alone is inappropriate. If you went to your dentist and it's like, sit down.
Right.
Why didn't you do this? You're going to be like,
You'd never go back.
Yeah, what is happening?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember, one of the judges in one of the cases saying, if you think that I'm going to make a ruling today about this, and this, when you haven't even, and my attorney wasn't even asking for that today. She just wanted to enter in some evidence, right? And it was like, here's, what's going on. Here's an update to the case. That's why we're here, to do an update. And she cut her off before she could even get anything out and just reamed her a new one.
And I think...
And then she was like, Judge, that's not what I'm trying to do here, right? And then she was like, oh, okay.
It's so infuriating. And I just want to get the videos. Like, let's just get the videos out there. I think if that was out there, we'd get new judges on the bench because we're elected here in Kentucky. And I think that would be a start. If we got one judge removed, or if we had one judge get an election flip, because what happens in particular in Louisville, and what happens in small towns to a different degree, it happens... There's cons and pros on both sides. But in Louisville, there's 10 judges. And so if you want to run for family court, you got a family law practice, you challenge one of them. Well, your client, you better be prepared for all your clients to pay. And so they ran unopposed last time because people can't take the loss.
Right.
They can't afford a campaign and then know their clients are going to be retaliated against.
That's
wild.
insane.
I've
never even
wild.
thought of that.
That's why I left the practice of law because, not the practice, but I left family court because of a judge that ex parte'd me. We had a whole thing about it. The judge had to recuse. It was a horrific case. I'm not going to get into the details, and one day I will tell it. But I had to go before her 2 weeks later on a different motion, something so simple, one family, one court, right? This case should have been in front of another judge that had heard everything else. And in front of all of the attorneys, everybody, she was just like, nope, like just dead in the eye. And I was like, I'm done.
Right.
Because I'm not going to have my client suffer.
Right.
Because, and it was, a certain level of trauma for me wanting to be a lawyer my entire life, and first generation attorney, but I didn't become a lawyer to be a good little girl and behave and turn a blind eye to injustice. And so I took some time off. I took a lot of time just to be like, what has happened, process it. And then, like I said, I got back into this because I thought it was just the Louisville judges, and then it's all of them. But in the small towns, you have the family court judge that knows Commonwealth attorney, county attorney, and so
That's what happened to me when I got home cooked. I mean, they were all rubbing elbows. And I mean, I often joke like it was me against City Hall. Like I had no chance.
Now, I ain't scared of much, but I'm scared of Eastern Kentucky.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that right now. I mean,
and not just Eastern Kentucky, like Harlan, the armpit of the state.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'll get into my story later. It's still not anywhere close to Meg's, but I got railroaded, no doubt. I got railroaded, and it was scary, and it really felt like it was me against the entire county of Harlan in terms of everyone that held any type of political power.
And they don't think that in small towns, it's so bizarre. The same families have run it for so long. Like, it was such a culture shock for me to go to Eastern Kentucky. We had a judge whose husband had already been to federal prison. And then there were all these allegations about him. He was a former prosecutor. Well, after I left, he went to prison for trafficking heroin.
Yeah.
So clearly there was some truth to those allegations.
Yeah.
I mean, he pled guilty to it. But everyone in the community talked about it, but they were held to such esteem that no one would challenge them. We don't have that in Louisville as much.
There's a cultural, I'd call it pride, I think, in southeastern Kentucky where, you protect your own.
Yeah.
And it's real. I tell people all the time, I'm like, you drive 2.5 hours south of here, it's like a whole different world.
Oh,
it's
totally.
a whole different world.
It's a completely different world. You drive through Lexington and drive to
Southeastern
Kentucky, you won't even recognize that it's the
people.
same state.
I mean, the people are different. And don't get me wrong, like, I have wonderful things that I can say about Harlan and the people of Harlan County. I met some of the most wonderful people that I've ever known in my life there. But I also dealt with some of the most horrific people of my life, and the rock bottom of my life there because of what those people did. And it was because, again, my ex had deep roots. I mean, you're talking his mom's, and and then his dad's, you know, I mean, I'm talking, it went deep. And so, I mean, for me, it was just a matter, I just threw in the towel. You know, I eventually just waved the white flag of surrender. But well, I'll get into that later. But it's a real thing, and it happens a lot.
Well, and I think that's what's going to be shocking, because and I do have ties to Eastern Kentucky, but we're going to get videos. We're doing all the judges in Kentucky.
So tell me a little bit about that. Like, can I just go into the courtroom and just video with my phone? Can anybody do it? Or is it just you because you're a member of the bar?
So I'm hesitant to say that you can do that. Now, the judge, obviously, we've got a TikTok judge that's selfie-recorded, you know, but everything in Kentucky is recorded, which is good. And so you can request the tapes. There's a cost associated with requesting those, which is what we'd like to do. I mean, we want to build a platform where we can request tapes from every judge so you can just see. You know what I mean? And I think people will be shocked to see how court's conducted in Eastern Kentucky. And I think these judges in Eastern Kentucky and Western Kentucky, once they're on a national...
Central Kentucky. Please, Central Kentucky. Please.
Yeah. And once they're on a national platform, like their behavior will immediately change.
You know, I just said this beforehand. I said, you know what I hope has more power than being a family court judge in a county is somebody with a 2 million person platform like me. I would like to think that holds more power and that we can get more done because we have a bigger voice and we can expose what they're doing.
And bring awareness,
Bring awareness.
For sure. And we will grow. I mean, I think once this hits, you know, I think we're 6 months away from really the pendulum like swinging into where we're in a lot of states.
Yeah, and this is it's a beautiful resource. I mean, that has never existed.
And these judges are, for example, why is your judge not on Wikipedia? Why? I mean, your state rep is.
Right.
If your state rep is on TikTok dancing to Sexy Red, Drop Low, Let That, you know what, breathe, you better believe their opponent's going to run an ad on it. But our judges are just doing that like it's Tuesday.
Yeah, but then nobody wants to run against them because then they're going to be blackballed.
Well, I think that it's twofold. If they thought they could win, they might. But these judges control the calendar as well. And that's why that full-time component and the accountability, because they can cancel to go to campaign events. But if there is a niche for somebody to be able to get in and win, you know, I think they'll do it. And I think time's up on these judges. It's shocking to me, literally, the sweatshirt, which I love, and I just got embroidered.
Yes.
When I went there, I was like, oh, hey, I'd never met this person. I'm like, I'm Christine. I'm talking about family court reform. And he's like, well, I got a story for you.
Exactly.
I bet you hear that all
Everybody
the time.
does.
Literally, I've changed hairdressers and they have a story. You know, my dentist holding me down like, you're not gonna, you know, and I'm just like, you can't go anywhere because it's affected everyone.
Which makes me sad too, because it kind of shows you the amount of divorce and just the amount of broken, you know, homes and families that there are. But, you know, again, I think I know Dr. Hensley's mission is to save the family unit, you know, in whatever form that
If we can save it, I will save it.
All right. I've told her a million times, if you can save the family unit, you can save the world, because this whole series that we're doing on family court is a result of the family unit being broken. And so, you know, I think it just comes full circle in terms of what our mission is and being able to bring awareness to these things, but overall to bring awareness to what love really is, right? And what love really looks like, and what, you know, godly love looks like.
Because nobody wants to end up in this system.
No.
Nobody wants to end up in family court. And I'll say it again, my divorce was the best thing that ever happened to me. I'd do it all again 1,000,000 times over to land where I am right now. But it was awful. It drains your money. It drains your soul.
And it really affects your children.
It does. The
children are
the victims.
I'm a product of divorce, and I'm a product of a divorce that happened later in life, you know, when I was nearly 18 years old. And I still have pain and scars from that, you know, and so it doesn't go away. And of course, obviously, no one goes through life unscathed. But if I could have prevented that for my own child, obviously I would have. And if I could have prevented the pain that came from the fight, I would have.
But we're also not just talking about divorce in custody with family
Sure.
court. And I think a lot of people
Sure.
don't understand, like we have the substance abuse issues that we have in this country. There are so many people that go through family court taking nieces, nephews, grandparents taking grandkids.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And they're getting it wrong in those cases. Like you are much more likely to touch family court than any other court in our country. You're not likely to be evicted. I mean, perhaps traffic court.
Right.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest motivators for my husband adopting my girls. For me, was because in their eyes, he is dad, right? He's raising them as if they're his biological children. If we didn't do the legal paperwork, nothing would change. But I think one of my biggest fears was, well, what if something happens to me? And then my ex's mother, who's very much involved in at least still my youngest daughter's life, she could go after custody. I mean, even though if I, said I want him to go to my brother, well, my brother lives in a whole nother state and she could probably prove a lot more involvement than my brother. And she could prove, a lot of things. And I was like, no, I want this solid where if something happens to me, they go to my husband and he's going to continue to raise them as dad.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And people don't realize how bad it is. And I think knowledge is power. And I just want people to understand, if there's one thing you can take away from me is that it can happen to you. Like it can happen to you. No one thinks it can happen to them and it can happen to you.
Yeah. People's lives are changed overnight. I mean, I have clients, I have a pretty pricey individual coaching rate, and there's reasons for that, because if I didn't, I'd be booked out 6 months. I'm booked out like a month and a half right now, even at that rate. But they will book an appointment with me because they're like, I just found out that my spouse is living a completely different life. And I didn't see this coming, I didn't see any of it coming. Like I have had the rug pulled out from underneath me. I am completely shocked by this. I'm going to be divorcing, but I didn't think this would ever happen to me. Right. So it can happen to you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter socioeconomic status. None of that matters. And
it doesn't matter.
I think that, I'm just so glad that you are here, that you're bringing awareness to this. So other than Judgy, which will be live and active once this airs.
And just to be, sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm very interrupted today because I'm all passionate.
Yeah, no, I just wanted for you to tell our listeners where else that they could find you.
I'm Kentucky Christine on TikTok. It's Miller Time Louisville on Instagram and YouTube. And then Judgy will have all the socials, and it's Judge-Y.
Okay. And Judgy, just to kind of what I wanted to interrupt about was just kind of like, again, remind our listeners of the mission and why it's so important and what they will fill out on Judgy if they go.
So judicial accountability is coming, and that's what Judgy's going to do. Judgy's going to judge the judges like the judges have been judging everyone else.
Love it.
And we want your stories. The goal is, and ultimately it will be an app. We are going to have the capability to have attorney-verified reviews anonymously. We will have reviews of litigants, and then we're going to have a court watching platform where you can watch and then review. And so I want everyone in the nation at the end of this, but I want everyone in Kentucky to be able to see their judge, pull orders from their judge to see how their judge orders. I want them to be able to watch tapes to see how the judge behaves in court. And I want to have a place where you can get Court of Appeals opinions, Supreme Court opinions on that judge, because they are, in my opinion, they're all over the place on the internet and hard to find because they don't want you to know. So this will just be a website for judicial accountability because it is past time.
Yeah.
We need transparency because bad things only happen in the darkness.
Amen.
When we bring them to the light, then the bad things stop happening.
Amen. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much,
you,
Christine.
Christine.
for
Thank y'all
being
so
here.
much.
So amazing.
It has been so enlightening and so wonderful to listen to you. So, of course, go check out Christine at
Kentucky Christine.
Kentucky Christine on TikTok.
Yes.
And then Miller Time.
It's Miller Time Louisville.
It's Miller Time Louisville on Instagram. And then, of course, if you have a story to tell, please go see Judgy. That's judge-y.com. Right? Did I
Yes.
get that right? Okay.
And tell your story.
Tell your
and I think
story.
that I saw it, you can just like put your first name only, or it can be like
It can be anonymous.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Because some people are still probably in the midst of their battle and they don't want, of course, to be retaliated against. And so this is such important work that you're doing, Christine. And I know that, you're growing your platform please go follow her, guys, because we need to link arms here, and we need to get reform
for all the parents,
for all
that
of
are
us
going
that
through
have
this.
suffered, and all of the children that are going to continue to suffer.
That's right.
Because there is no transparency, no accountability, and no consistency in family court.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you. And of course, thank you to our sponsor, Cozy Earth. We love you, Cozy Earth, so much. We always know that Cozy Earth makes the perfect gift for any occasion that's coming up. So if you need to give somebody the perfect gift, go check out Cozy Earth. Their sheets are made from the viscose from bamboo.
Yes. And it is the softest, most luxurious
Once you go Cozy Earth,
sheet.
you can't go back.
You can't. You're
cannot.
just, everything feels like sandpaper after Cozy Earth. And their pajamas are just, I think that's going to be the very first thing I do when I get home, actually, is just slip into my really soft Cozy Earth pajamas and snuggle with my husband and decompress. Because they have the best pajamas on earth.
They do. I'm excited because obviously, I have a college-aged son now that's going to go to Moorhead this fall, and so I'm going to do his whole dorm in Cozy Earth sheets and comforters. And I've already been looking online. They've got, the gold and the blue colors, so it's going to be great. So thank you, Cozy Earth, for all you do. Of course, for our listeners, you can go to cozyearth.com and put in promo code LoveDog for 40% off your entire purchase, which is so very generous. So thank you very much, Cozy Earth. And of course, while you're there, please check out Dr. Hensley services at thelovedog.com. And for our listeners, you can put in LoveDog27 to receive 27% off. And please go check out our Patreon's account. We now have a Patreon's account at patreons.com/thelovedogpodcast. And thank you, because we have our first Patreon, Carissa Nicole. Thank you so much.
Carissa.
Yes,
shout
thank
out.
you for being a super fan. We appreciate you so much.
This is so exciting.
Yeah, and of course, you get all the perks of being a member on our Patreon account. So please go check that out while you're there. And until next time, peace, love, and perspective.